We are taught, and I say we because it is such a global uh, teaching, that heaven and hell are actual places. Hi, Phoenix family. So tonight's topic is heaven and hell. I have been asked about my thoughts on this from various people. Some are pagan, some are Christian, and some come from various other religions, and some have even asked me that don't have any religious preference at all. Um, but because of the way they've been raised or what they've heard from other people, that they question this idea.
Shun the non-believer. Shun.
I first of all want to say that I always encourage asking questions. I always encourage you to continue to be the student. Even when you've mastered an area of religion or if you've mastered certain topics, continue to share what you have mastered, but also be prepared to be the student and take in more information, so that you can evaluate it and decide where to go with that. Okay? Um, so back to the primary question that has been asked to me several times is, what are my thoughts on heaven and hell? So here goes. Okay? Um, First things first. We are taught, and I say we because it is such a global uh, teaching, that heaven and hell are actual places, that how you live in life and what you do in life will determine at your death that whether you will not go to heaven or you will go to hell. And depending on various acts that you make in life, or ask for forgiveness, um, or even taking your own life, there are certain rules that are listed. And if you break all of these rules, but you ask for forgiveness or whatever, then all of that is negated and it's fine. You won your ticket. But then the one that cannot be forgiven is taking one's life. And unfortunately, I have met a few people in my life that have taken their own life. And with the teaching of their entire life from their own family would be that if this such and such would happen, that you would not be forgiven and you would go to hell. But then when it does happen, the family reverts back to, well, they are living in heaven, they're in a better place. And that's they're coming up with that because they don't want to say such and such person that I loved so much has taken their own life and gone to hell. Nobody wants to say that. It's a time of grieving. It's a time of trying to cope with death. So I mean that's a pretty harsh one. That's the big one. Um, Other things in life, such as bad actions. Um, if you do these things, then you cannot go back to this and then reassure yourself a place in heaven. And so I'm going over that because most of all of this you've heard throughout your life, okay? At some point or another, whether it be in church, whether it be from family, or places that you have visited, somebody has said this, or even in movies, okay? So with that perspective, with that conversation out there, okay, this is where we're at. This is what you know. This is what I'm sharing with you. Let's take the next step to actually answering the question on how I feel about it. And that is that they are not places. It is not a physical place that you would go to after death. Okay? Heaven and hell, for lack of better words, is a state of mind that you are in now, that you live in now. The statement of to suffer in eternal hell, what does that mean, right? That means forever and ever and ever. Eternal hell. I mean, and for many people, but that's a scary thought. That's enough to make them go, oh dear, Um, my perception is that it's not eternal, but internal. Okay? Think of the one thing in your life that absolutely just devastated you. It could be a breakup, a relationship where the other person ended the relationship and you are just whole. You can't think, you can't breathe, you can't eat, you can't sleep. You kind of start working on autopilot. That is internal hell. Okay, that is where your state of mind is. Nothing makes sense. You're numb to everything. You don't really care about decision making. You could care less about empathy for others because you are in this place. Okay, and then think about something like heaven. It's not a place, but a state of mind. It's think of your wedding day. Okay, uh, maybe the wedding was absolutely perfect, which most people that I know do not ever have a perfect wedding, but something may have happened in the wedding to create a lot of laughter or a lot of good feelings, to release the endorphins of happiness. Whether it be the ceremony itself or family members putting on a dance or, whatever. In that moment, in that time in your life, you are in happiness. You are in the state of heaven. Um, the birth of a child when everybody's excited, um, a new relationship, the budding of love, and the excitement of being one another. Um, when you can do something for somebody else, somebody else is struggling, and maybe you're able to buy groceries, or maybe you can just get them some lunch, or provide them with a pair of shoes or a blanket. That feel good feeling, the endorphins being released of happiness, is a state of mind of heaven. The other side to it of hell, of the internal hell, not eternal, but internal, is addictions. Okay? Um, Alcohol, drugs, sex, work, um, certain projects, obsessions. Addictions are so many. It could be in the form of making money. It could be in the form of using a substance. It could be in the form of putting work over your family, or buying lottery tickets. Addictions comes in many forms, but when that addiction takes over you, and that's where your life is, that's where your state of mind is, and then suddenly, I don't know, the addiction is pulled away from you. You lose your job, or you've lost your job, your house, your spouse, and everything else because of a drug or an alcohol or gambling. Um, you're shattered. This is your internal hell. Okay? It is what you live here on this planet. It's what you have to deal with in your daily life, the choices that you make. Now, granted, I'm also aware that sometimes we just feel like crap because of something that we had no control over. But we are in the trickle effect of who we hang around with. Okay? People that do bad things that we are associated with have the trickle effect, and it will affect our lives in some way, somehow. Um, it's the same goes as if being around somebody that does a lot of good things for other people. That trickles into our life. Okay? So sometimes it's not about what we do, but who we have around us and what they do. Okay? Now, the after death part of it, okay, in my understanding, is reincarnation, or living as a spirit on earth. We can talk about reincarnation for hours and hours and hours and still have questions. It is my personal opinion that reincarnation is absolutely a thing, and it is also my opinion that there is no time frame of when. Somebody could pass away and reincarnate rather quickly, days to a couple of months, and to even a few years, to the other side of the coin being maybe centuries later. But the spirit will come back and be reborn again. The soul itself of what makes you um, will return to another life at some point. Okay. Um, I feel that their life, or I should say their death, their time on earth in the spirit form, is determined by how they lived. Okay. Again, we're talking about internal. Okay. If you've lived a life where you are content, if you have lived a life, and nothing is ever 100% perfect, but generally, if you lived a life where you are content, where you feel that you did good, and when it's time for you to go, no matter how you go, when it's time for you to go, your soul, while it's on this earth, lives in that moment. If you have this life that you were content with, that you did good, you felt good about yourself, then you're in the state of mind or state of realm of happiness, heaven. If you've lived your life, for example, like Hitler, and where he murdered lots and lots of people and he had really bad sexually transmitted disease, he went mad, he went crazy, and he was not content with his life. He had many nightmares, he had many issues before he passed. So I believe that his soul, while on earth, would be angry, would be upset, would be confused, would be lost. Internal hell. Okay? Um, it is a state of mind. This is what I explain to people, especially when people have fears. Fears from what religion has taught them. Um, I have to be straight. I have to have short hair. I have to be. I have to worship in a certain way. I have to follow it in this in a certain way. I have to wear skirts. I have to do this in order to appease the religion, in order, to go to heaven. But I'm not straight, or I want to cut my hair real short, or I don't like skirts. Just throwing stuff out there. But these are things that people do in their lives, right? And then the idea, because they don't like long hair, okay? It's not them. That they're being told they're going to go to hell, right? The worst one, and this comes from our youth, teenagers, I'm going to say as early as 14 to about 20, okay, our youth. And they come into relationships, very intimate relationships with their peers, okay? And now religion has taught them that they cannot do this because it is bad, or they will go to hell, or here's one. This one, oh, this one makes me so angry. I watched a video where a young man and a young woman were together, and when I say young, I mean they were both probably 17, and um, they had talked about marriage and everything, and he had in his idea that when they became married, that they would come together and copulate on the night of the wedding. So she sits him down and she explains to him that a previous boyfriend that she had been with before, she had already been intimate with him. She had already had sex with him. And next thing we know, he produces this pair of tennis shoes that's worn out, tore up, just looks like it's been run through the mud, just full of holes and everything. The nastiest pair of shoes you could possibly see. And he says, "This is what you are to me, because you gave yourself to somebody else before marriage." And that right there put them both in a really bad position. The religious aspect of it is teaching the children that if you do this, you are nothing but an old pair of worn out, tore up shoes that nobody wants. Now she's questioning herself. A young person, barely 17 years old, has had an intimate encounter, and for the rest of her life, she fears, one, she's not good enough for anybody else to love or want to be with or want to have anything to do with on an intimate level. But the biggest fear is, does that mean she's going to go to hell for doing something that was 100% completely human in nature? Okay? And then for the young man, maybe he questions it. You know, he knows that he's in love with this girl. He knows that he wants to marry her. But now he has learned this. And by religious reasons, he's now been told that he can't do anything with her because she's useless. She's worthless. She's now going to hell. So now, what does he do? Does he marry her and take the consequences of hell? I mean, he loved her, but she's an old wore out pair of shoes. Or does he just break up with her and go to find somebody else that is a virgin? That is a big one. That is a really mind-blowing one, but that's very, very common. And this creation of heaven and hell is why our youth go through those questions. It's why their lives are so tormented, because they are doing human things that we are meant to do as beings, and being threatened with this eternal place of suffering for being human. And that alone, if that doesn't make you question humanity, I don't know what will. But heaven and hell is not a place. You'll not go to hell. You'll not go to heaven. You will live your life to the best that you can and what you decide. How you feel at the end of the day is what matters. Will you live in a state of mind of heaven and peace? Or will you live in a state of mind of hell, of internal hurt because of your decision making? That's entirely up to you. Okay? Um, that's it, guys. I love you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any other questions, or if you'd like me to go a little bit deeper into the topic, absolutely will. So I love y'all. Have a great night. Mwah.